Bishop Paul is Auxiliary of Westminster and the lead bishop for migrants and refugees in the Bishops' Conference of England and Wales. Through his role, he's taken great steps to encounter and walk alongside migrants and refugees, both overseas and here in the UK. Bishop Paul was responsible for the recent document, Love the Stranger, a Catholic response to migrants and refugees, which draws on over a century of Catholic social teaching and applies it to the political and social situation we face today in England and Wales. Bishop Paul, I'm really pleased that you're here to be able to join us. Thank you very much. And we'd like to hear from you now. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Patrick, for your introduction. And indeed, thank you to CSAN for arranging this webinar this evening. And thank you to everyone who is attending. And can I also thank you for whatever you are doing in your own parish, in your locality, for the cause of migrants and refugees. As Patrick said, I'm going to speak about the document, Love the Stranger. There's a wonderful Archbishop in Kurdistan, Iraq, called Archbishop Warda, who is leading the reconstruction project in that area. And Archbishop Warda said that buildings can be rebuilt, but restoring the dignity of those who are marginalized and humiliated is a far more difficult journey. It requires, he said, from interveners and aid providers, something beyond money. He went on to say that what is needed most of all is respect for people as human beings. The document, Love the Stranger, as Patrick said, is a response. But it is not a response to one particular incident or one particular piece of legislation. Instead, it is an affirmation, a declaration of something very, very basic: the innate worth of each human being. And that first and most fundamental of principles, applied specifically to migration, its causes and consequences, and how that same principle should guide, direct, and govern not only our response, but our thinking towards migration and towards migrants and refugees. Everything in the document is an expansion and a commentary on that first principle, the innate worth of each person, though it includes a call on government and people to acknowledge their responsibilities which flow from that principle. That the dignity of each person being respected and upheld is the concern of the whole document, no matter where that person is, in their own country or elsewhere. We are sometimes accused, in fact, often accused, of having an open door policy. Let everyone in. The Church and Love the Stranger does not take that approach. It is much more profound. It recognizes the global nature of migration, the resulting hardships which undermine and endanger human dignity, and presents a Catholic response based on Catholic social teaching and gospel values. In Love the Stranger, there are 24 principles. Following the 24 principles at the beginning, there are 8 chapters which progress, each chapter developing from the one before. And it begins with the global perspective, the whole world, universal belonging. One of the foundations of Catholic social teaching is universal belonging. The document received endorsement from the Dicastery for Integral Human Development. They were consulted beforehand. it has been received favorably by many Catholic charities and agencies. Will it have an effect? Well, this document, in which so much work was invested, will it have an effect? Will its purpose be achieved? And the answer is only if government take account of the global situation and are moved to work internationally and avoid policy which penalizes migrants and refugees and disregards their basic dignity. At the same time, we encourage use of the document so that what we say on migrant and refugee issues is heard and understood by the public at large. And it is edifying that many parishes are making use of it, and several charities and agencies are referring to it. The document Love the Stranger can be used for judging public policy concerning migrants and refugees. That public policy is consistently changing. In the last 3 years, we have seen the end of free movement from EU countries, the Rwanda Plan, the Illegal Migration Act, the Hong Kong BNO visa scheme, and Homes for Ukraine. Love the Stranger provides a framework for assessing such policies, to see, to judge, and to act. Government policy can be measured against the overarching principle. The right to migrate, is it being upheld? The common good, is it being properly considered? And there's a chapter devoted to equality and human dignity, which helps us to judge specifics such as, is decent accommodation being provided? Is family reunification being facilitated? Are our obligations under the Refugee Convention being honoured? Are unacceptable practices like detention and arbitrary removal being avoided? And with this approach, we can identify policies that are broadly deserving of our support. For example, the Hong Kong visa scheme. And we can identify policies which are incompatible with Catholic social teaching, such as the Rwanda Plan. Applying the principles of the document means engaging with practical issues, such as the aid budget, which has been slashed in recent years, the arms trade, which the UK plays a leading role in, and of course, the climate emergency, which we all share responsibility for. And these issues cannot be separated from those 4 wonderful verbs which Pope Francis has given us: welcome, promote, protect, and integrate migrants and refugees. Chapter 3 of the document, Love the Stranger, is entitled The Right to Flourish in One's Homeland, which corresponds to the theme of this year's World Day of Migrants and Refugees: free to choose, the right to migrate, and the right to stay. We didn't know at the time of publication that that was going to be the theme this year. And this issue, the right to choose, to migrate or to stay, was raised as long ago as 1891 by Pope Leo XIII. And he wrote in the first social encyclical, no one would exchange their own country for a foreign land if their own afforded them the means of a decent and happy life. Migration is not something new. This is reaffirmed by Pope Francis, who wrote, ideally, unnecessary migration ought to be avoided. This entails creating in countries of origin the conditions needed for a dignified life. In order to create those conditions, what is needed is solidarity, international cooperation, remembering another Catholic social teaching principle, the universal destination of goods. The fruits of the earth are for everyone. As Love the Stranger underscores, while we are called to engage with policymakers, responsibility for applying these principles does not only rest with the government. We all have a role to play, from helping people to flourish in their homelands to providing a dignified welcome when they come here. Much of this is undertaken by organizations, charities, and agencies such as CAFOD, Missio, Pax Christi, and Aid to the Church in Need. These agencies address the factors driving people from their homes in the first place. And there's Caritas, the Jesuit Refugee Service, and the St. Vincent de Paul Society, which provide practical support for people arriving here in the United Kingdom. The Chaldean Church in Kurdistan, Iraq, which I mentioned earlier, has so far, because of the aid they have received, built a wonderful library, a state-of-the-art hospital, and a university. It is attracting investment in the area to bring employment, to discourage young people from emigrating. And it is projects such as this which need to be supported. Yet, we very rarely hear of such efforts. I met some young people there who told me they had no intention of migrating. They were content. What they needed was being provided for. I have met several Ukrainians, and probably you have as well, who have fled the war in their homeland, who tell me that it is their intention to go home when hostilities cease. Everyone has the right to migrate, to seek fulfillment and security, economic and physical, for themselves and their families. But what is often overlooked is the right not to migrate. However, people do migrate, and we all know the reasons. Going to the aid of migrants, refugees, displaced persons, asylum seekers, is not simply almsgiving or an act of kindness, but it is an act of justice. Our solidarity with them comes from the basic belief that we have a duty to share our common resources. For the Christians supporting the cause of refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers, it is not a hobby. It's not a niche interest. It is an act of justice. With those who flee from their homeland in mind, I conclude with a verse from Isaiah, which describes the manner of the Redeemer in his pursuit of justice. It says of him so beautifully, "He does not break the crushed reed, nor quench the wavering flame." If someone has fled their homeland, crossed the desert and the sea, or maybe two seas, negotiated countless obstacles, struggled to find food for themselves and their family, and is then detained, denied the right to work, threatened with deportation, is it likely that the flame of hope, which they managed to keep alive, is going to be strengthened or extinguished? To uphold people's dignity, it is essential to give them hope. That is also our duty towards migrants and refugees. Thank you.